Hey, what's up, guys? This is Jacob again. This is going to be the 19th video in this series of studying JavaScript. I got about 5 hours done today, which is pretty good. Um, so, what did I really do today? So, something that's notable about today is this was the first time I actually dug my teeth into ECMAScript specification, the latest one. Um, it's a dense document for sure, and I didn't get through like even maybe a third of it, but I did start reading it. Well, it looked like I didn't get through a third of it, but sometimes that can be deceiving. There might be a whole lot of like references at the bottom. I haven't even gotten there. But I started getting into it, and you know, pretty good. I expect that I'm probably going to be reading this ECMAScript, specification from time to time. It's not something that you probably read every section of, but I like to um, scan more or less everything about it and get a good idea what I could take a look at deeper and continue to just like bombard my mind with the main concepts that are really core to the JavaScript language, right? Some other things I looked at are I started looking at W3C's CSS. They've got a bunch of different like little things. There were a little of these demo things. I looked at those a little bit. I would give it a sort of score. It's a little bit helpful. The problem with trying to learn CSS through like visually looking at things a lot of the time is that CSS is really about the combination of many different properties simultaneously at once, right? That said, I think it's really useful to probably focus on small little chunks of it at a time. But really, I just think CSS is seriously just a memorization and kind of like trial and error, trial by fire sort of thing, where you just memorize the main core powerful things like grid and flex and like media and animation, and then there's all this bullshit stuff that really doesn't matter nearly as much in my opinion, um, like padding, margin, whatever. I mean, stuff matters, but it's just so much conceptually easier to understand. Um, I think, but maybe I'm just wrong about this. Anyways, I'm committed to trying to learn CSS, and so I'm going through it, as time goes on, spaced repetition, trying to really get my teeth into it and get really comfortable with it so that, I basically have it memorized and internalized, and I know how to solve the layout problems on my page like really fast, and there's not really any issues, right? So I'm really aiming for that. So I spent a little bit of time on that. I spent some time doing, a technique everybody does. I don't do it that much, but I do it sometimes, and it's Googling something, right? So when I Google something that I know that I want to know more about right now, and I know exactly how to ask for it because a lot of the time it's a reference type of thing. So some things I googled was object.assign the method because I see that all the time, and I wanted to clarify in my mind exactly what it is. Um, uh, and what it is basically is it merges properties. There's like an entire little algorithm about some of the edge cases, but more or less it takes two arguments, and the first argument absorbs all of the properties of the second argument, and it is a modify in place. So, if you had an object and you passed it into object assign, it would be modified, but it also returns a new object with all those properties. So you can pick and choose how you want to use it. If you want to take the return value, or you want to just be careful if you do like the in place thing, because the object that you pass to it is going to be changed, which is why actually you see a lot of the time just empty object instantiation right there, because they actually just want to use the return value. They don't want to mess with any of the original values that are kind of being merged and combined. That's one thing I looked up. Again, I'm looking up stuff that I see all the time that finally has crossed the threshold of being absolutely worth knowing higher resolution information about. I looked up array.prototype.slice, What that is it just takes a subsection of an array by specifying a beginning and end index. The indexes can also use negative indices, and that basically starts from the reverse. It's very much like Python. A really good trope, if you want to get the last element, is just to use something like -1, and I think it'll just take the last element. If you only pass slice one argument, it will go all the way to the end of the array. So if you put slice of 0, you copy the entire array, okay? I'm pretty sure you copy the entire array. Okay, another one I looked at was sort. I just looked at that one. Sort is kind of weird. It's really simple. If you don't pass it a callback, you basically just sort things based on, alphabet. Specifically UTF-8 16 encoding comparisons, but I'm pretty sure it's just alphabetic sorting, right? If you pass in a callback, basically if whatever that callback is, so sorting takes two elements, a first and a second. Whatever this callback is, if it returns positive, then the second element is really, you don't need to worry about any of that. All you want to focus on when you see sort is what you're sorting on. And you put a minus sign between them if they're numbers or something else, and that's basically it, right? And so you can think about sort as really just being like sort on property, right? And whether it's in ascending or descending order is kind of just arbitrary, because it's so simply manipulated by just doing something like reverse, right? So that was another thing I looked up. I looked into typed arrays, which is the word for it, but a better way to think about it is something like a uint8 array, a uint16 array, an int8 array. Pretty useful type if you want to use binary, which is pretty useful if you want to do WebSockets, which I want to do eventually. Other things are blob. A blob is the logical higher order object that uses a uint, uses array. Those typed arrays or whatever I was talking about before, it uses it underneath, and it can combine it with strings and stuff. Really useful. I'm sure I'm going to use that. Underneath it all is there's this thing called an array buffer, which doesn't really matter. You don't ever really need to use it. You can just use the things above it, I would think, because you need to have a view to manipulate it anyways. And so using an array buffer is really just like, all right, cool, I allocated some memory, that's all zeros. That's pretty much it. So you can just do that with the other ones. But it's still good to know that it's, there. So I looked into that a little bit. Let's see. Oh wow, already 8 minutes in. I read some source code too. I'm pretty sure that's basically all I did, right? Only got about 5 hours in, so I read a little bit of MDN, but I didn't really hit much else other than ECMAScript, source code, some CSS, some very specific target Google searches, and yeah, just my standard source code. How do I feel? I feel good, man. Things are definitely starting to click more. It's still, when you read source code quickly, it's kind of hard, but I've identified a lot of tropes, and I've started to get like very high resolution understandings of what's happening, right? And going through ECMAScript is really kind of teaching me the underlying strategy of the language in a lot of ways. Something that's not related to JavaScript that I definitely should read though is the IEE 7 whatever specification for numbers, because you see this all over the place, honestly, and numbers are important, right? Numbers and strings are so important. Anyways, it's kind of like a tangent, but yeah. So I'm feeling pretty good about the whole thing, feeling pretty good about the channel. I think things might start going a little bit better for the channel. Why? Well, I've sort of expanded a little bit to some other platforms like Odyssey and Vimeo and Twitter and Instagram, and I think that that might help me, but maybe not. I mean, I just feel good about making progress too. I mean, this is hour 112, right? If you go back 112 hours, I was a worse JavaScript programmer in all ways. I was worse at CSS, I was worse at HTML, worse at JavaScript. And, I'm better now, and that feels good. Am I good enough? Not at all. Not at all. Not even close. But, progress is progress, and I feel good about that. I think I might go through, I mean, I say this all the time, about updating my content on my blog, but I'm just, I have a lot of those assets sort of prepared and the idea about it, but I need to go through and do it. Yeah, so pretty cool. Drop a comment if you want to. Like and subscribe. Go check out my blog at pieharbor.com. If you want to, go check out these other video platforms, because you know, I think YouTube has some serious disadvantages as a consumer and as a content creator, right? And I might make a video about that specifically, but these other platforms like Vimeo and Odyssey, they have their own advantages and disadvantages. And I really kind of like the vibe of branching out, getting something new, right? Getting into some new pools of information. Maybe YouTube's recommendation system is stagnating and stale for you. Go try out something else, man. Honestly, in my experience, you get the best information on the internet by actively searching for it, not just getting recommended it on the, with whatever algorithms they have. That's convenient, and you do get good stuff sometimes from it, but a lot of the time you get better stuff by just being proactive on the internet, either with Google or with these other things, just not being stuck in one fish pond. So, anyways, that's going to be it for this one. As I usually say, and I really think that this is a good message to send to my audience: control your focus. I'm that's how I'm making progress on my own stuff. I sit down and I don't get pulled away by all this stuff that's trying to use my attention, right? It's hard to really just allocate, a couple hours to do stuff each day, but that's the only way you actually make progress in things. Don't buy any of this silly stuff on the internet where people are claiming to make progress without putting in effort. They don't. Actually, the more of an expert you are, the more you see through so many content creators. They get in front of a mic and they can't even really talk. Actually, programming is really complicated and hard, and the more you know about it, the more you can really see through someone's articulation of concepts. They'll sit there and they'll kind of say some things, but it's a lot of it is just parroting and very, very surface level conceptual understanding. So that's a pretty interesting thing. And so I don't know what is that in relation to? I don't know. Anyways, right, focus. I need to focus, right? As you can see, I kind of have a bit of an ADHD and I'm a bit scatterbrained. But I can still manage to get myself just looking at code and committed to some of these things. But if I can do it, I'm sure all of you guys can do it. But yeah, try and control your focus and try and do something that actually makes you better and makes the world better. Let's try and make this win-win, right? So thanks for watching, and peace out. Take care of yourself.